Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to the Legends Pod. Thanks everybody for tuning in, checking it out. We will have some segments releasing later on this week. Sorry, I have ESPN SVP on here in the corner, so I'm just trying to keep up with everything that's going on. Do have some segments dropping later this week on the Legends Pod. Some interviews that we're doing with some talent, so that will be awesome here in the next few days. Really quick though, what I want to do, I'm going to start doing these segments a little bit more throughout the week, is kind of blitz through Twitter and just give some opinions on some current events. Again, these are strictly my opinions. You may or may not agree. That is perfectly fine. But, to get things started right off the bat, man, The Last Dance has to be, to me, it is the greatest documentary I have ever seen in my entire life. And people are, whoa. Yeah, the greatest ever. The greatest documentary I've ever seen in my entire life. These last two episodes, I could probably watch every day for multiple weeks. I think one of the coolest things about the Last Dance documentary is that regardless of your age, I'm in my early 30s, so I didn't get to see everything about Michael Jordan as it was happening. And so some of the things I had to brush up on in the past, and I'm a big sports basketball junkie, so a lot of things I did know, even though I didn't see it live. But I feel like no matter what, there is something that maybe you either didn't know, and this is like the first time you're hearing about it and you're in awe, or you knew, but enough time has passed to where you're kind of reminded and you're like, wow, I can't believe I kind of forgot about that, or that, I remembered it differently. And I just think the documentary is so like genuine. It's so authentic. And, with all the entertainment aspects of it, without getting into politics too much, my favorite part of that documentary was him finally addressing his kind of political stance. And there's just been that whole thing about, Republicans buy sneakers too. And we're talking, this has gone on for decades, where there's been at no time has he addressed it. And I think this was it was such a breath of fresh air to hear Michael Jordan speak, because we live in a social media era where when a public figure takes a stance on a particular issue, if you disagree with that issue and you come out publicly and disagree, you get ridiculed by the Twitter mob. So, and again, not to kind of include LeBron with this whole thing, because I know there's this whole LeBron MJ thing, but if LeBron comes out and says XYZ, I have never really seen another athlete or public figure come out and disagree with that XYZ. And it's so not cliche, but it's such the norm right now. It's almost exhausting and boring, where it's like it doesn't have to be political, but it's like any public statement, like you have to agree with if you are on one side or the other. So if you are a Democrat and a Democrat comes out, a knowing supporting Democrat comes out, that's a public figure, an athlete, entertainer, whatever it is, and they say they support this, you by default as a Democrat have to support that. You may not think you do, but you're also not going to come out and say, I don't support that. And I just think and same thing for Republicans. If you are, I'm just trying to think of an athlete, whatever, like a Dennis Rodman, because we're talking about The Last Dance. He's a Trump guy. He's come out and supported Trump and that kind of stuff. If you are a Republican, you're going to just support Dennis Rodman in that regard. I just think we're at this weird time where people should be able to just come out and disagree. And I just think if you are a liberal and you follow every liberal decision, I just find that really odd. And same thing, if you're a conservative, that doesn't mean you need to believe in every single thing, that every conservative bill or every conservative um, politician, if he comes out and says, we don't agree with everything, even if you don't necessarily publicly discuss it. But I think we are, and I know I'm getting a little bit too into politics, but I think we are. The one thing I do love about the time we're in, and there's a lot of negative stuff going on, but I feel like in the last 10 years, it was forbidden to discuss politics, and we all know why. I feel like we are entering a phase where politics may one day be able, may be the norm at a bar having a conversation. I tell people this all the time, and this is my stance, and it's opposite of what most people think. I think they are healthy conversations if you are willing to listen. That doesn't mean you have to agree. It means it's okay to listen to the other side. It's okay to listen to someone else's point of view, whether you agree or disagree. I think it makes for healthy debate. All right, that's my stance on that. I will avoid politics the rest of the time here. My man Kendrick Perkins talking about he's picking Siakam over Paul George. I mean, I had to read it like 3 times. Perk. No, man. Never. He put it up on Twitter, and you're getting like, freaking dentists and stuff like that are responding who may or may not know jack shit about basketball. Put a poll up there, and there's no way to monitor it, but if you ask the league, ask people in the league right now, or I would be shocked if you got 30% of people that pick Siakam. There's just no way. When healthy, Paul George is a top 10 player in the NBA. Siakam, nowhere near that. Most improved, a year ago, an all-star, upside tremendous. But I think when we're talking about Paul George versus Siakam, I'm going Siakam 10 times out of 10. Again, just my opinion. Shout out Kendrick Perkins, though. I don't know what you guys are watching right now on television, but I've exhausted all my options with all the A+ shows. We're talking the Ozarks and that kind of stuff. I've seen them. I'm up to speed. They're all phenomenal. So good. Blah, 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 blah. Let me give you an under-the-radar show that I am literally obsessed with right now, and that's The Last Kingdom. Uhtred, son of Uhtred, holler at your boy. Underrated show, and it's like, you're putting a team together, and the Ozarks and, the Homelands and all that kind of stuff. Those are the Kobes, the Jordans, but as we saw in The Last Dance, you need a Paxton. You need a Paxton to hit a game winner. That's The Last Dance. The Last Kingdom. Check it out. On Netflix, they just released, the latest season. I believe it's season 4, and I believe it was released like within the last week or two. Go check it out. If you haven't seen it and you need to binge something, this is binge worthy. That is Last Kingdom out there on Netflix. Let's see what else we got here. Let us see here. Man, I can't believe I'm gonna have Perk twice in this thing, but he put out, I can only imagine what LeBron and Kevin Durant would have done to Dan Marley in a finals matchup. Carry on. It's so funny because even Jason McIntyre put out the other day, the media is so keen on like protecting those like legends from the 80s and 90s. Like they can do no wrong. And we're so quick to like remind these young cats nowadays like how much these all-stars would have struggled back in the day because of the hand check and because of the physicality. And I actually agree with Jason McIntyre's stance. Like LeBron, KD, Steph, Harden would have done work back in the 80s or 90s. I'm not saying, I'm not saying they would average 40, but maybe outside of Harden, I mean, depending on the situation, I don't see why people wouldn't be putting up, what they're averaging now, maybe a little less, just because the games were less possessions, a little bit lower scoring. But like in the last dance, they were talking about the finals when MJ beat the Lakers and Magic Johnson. And like, look at some of the box scores. Like Magic Johnson was getting triple doubles, and it's like, you think like LeBron couldn't get triple doubles back in that? Like, crazy. Like, honestly, unless you're playing the Knicks or like the bad boy Pistons, who just physically wouldn't let you get to like what you need to get to statistically, that's one thing. But had he been, inserted, gone back in time and been inserted, take Michael Jordan out, put LeBron in against those Lakers, I don't see why he couldn't have done the same thing. I mean, maybe that's just me. LeBron is, to me, not the GOAT. Nobody in my lifetime will ever pass Michael Jordan for the GOAT. I'm just going to come out and say it, but I do think you put LeBron back in some of those games. I don't think he's hitting any of those game winners. I think from a mental psyche standpoint, this is where like MJ and Kobe were just different cats, man. They are just different. But I do think you put these guys from this era back in there, and it's interesting. The physical part, definitely would come in and play a factor, but they'd also, there's a level of shooting that was rare back then. Like Paxson, Steve Kerr are like specialists. Like Steph Curry is 50 times the player of those guys and shoots better. So it would have been, it's a really unwinnable debate on either side, but it's fascinating to think about. So that's something right there that has been on my mind for a while. Let's see what else we got here. Countless information. I know all the owners and the leagues and the commissioners are trying desperately to figure this whole thing out about resuming the seasons. I am going to go on record. I'm 100% confident that all the seasons are going to resume. Will there be fans in the stands? Probably not. But I'm getting, I'm on different group texts and looking at Twitter and, I don't think this is going to it's going to happen. One, my main reason, it always comes down to the financials. There is, I retweeted an article from Newsweek about the billions and billions that are being lost right now amongst all the leagues. They're just bleeding out. At some point, if it's not happening already with the meeting of the minds, they are just being cautious and taking the necessary steps, but they will figure out a solution to resume play. We are going to get a version of the NBA playoffs. If I had to die on top of the hill, I would say by 4th of July weekend, we are going to be blessed with like 3 or 4 of the major sports going on at the same time. We should have NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. MLB should be kicking off. We should be, 3-4 weeks into the MLS season, and that's it. And like a relay race, these playoffs and MLB and MLS kicking off, all they're going to do is hand that baton over to NCAA football, NFL football, which, by the way, schedules are getting released, it looks like, on Thursday. I know this pandemic has sucked. The quarantine has sucked. This lockdown has been tricky, but it will make us appreciate a lot of things, a lot of things that we took for granted. And a huge part of American culture is sports. I think people need sports. Speaking of, huge MMA card, shout out to Dana White and the UFC for being hyper aggressive in finding a solution during this pandemic to host this insane card. And I think we have MMA for like the next 2 or 3 weeks. After that, just PGA is getting ready to launch here in a month. We're going to get, I think, Memorial Weekend. We're going to get the Tiger versus Phil and Peyton and Tom Brady. That is must-see TV. What is not must-see TV is what Doug Gottlieb just retweeted. ESPN has reached an agreement with the KBO to air all games live from Korea. Opening day is tomorrow. More details to come. And Doug Gottlieb, making a Michael Jordan Last Dance reference, says if you bet on Korean baseball, you have a competitive problem. For those who don't know, Michael Jordan was and is a big-time gambler. Supposedly will gamble on just about anything. And he's asked in one of his interviews if he has a gambling problem, and he basically says no, he has a competitive problem, which is a freaking phenomenal answer. Just another reason why MJ is the GOAT. Flat out MJ is the GOAT. Just built different. How about Kobe? I can make this whole segment about The Last Dance, but seeing Kobe, it still just feels so weird that he is gone. But man, like, just talk about passing the torch. Like, people just don't understand how those two are wired so similarly, and how Jordan knew it, because you can hear him talking to other guys about it in like the locker room. And there is a sense of respect, but he could see it so well, yet he wanted to make him work for it and asked, like, he's never going to reach out to him on his own. And I just thought, like, the authenticity of that part of that segment was just, as a fan, it was just so like pure and genuine. I loved everything about it, man. And, it's still rough, man. It just sucks that Kobe's not here to kind of witness that. Because those two, there will never again, maybe someone will come along, in decades to come, but MJ and Kobe were just cut from the same cloth, man. And they just, that their competitive desire and will to win is something that we may not ever see again. So, RIP Mamba. Last, kind of jumping off Twitter, but my buddy sent me a text this morning. He'll shoot me one every now and then just to rev the engine, get me fired up. Occasionally he'll send one that he knows will piss me off, and I'll wake up in a shit mood. But my guy Kayvon Wallace put this out in some kind of like interview or whatever. My buddy's a big Philly guy, went to Penn State, yada, yada, yada. Big Philly guy. If you know anybody from Philly, they're freaking psychos. But so it goes in and talks a little bit about the mentality. It's all about being a dog. They have that dog mentality. It's just about work, blah, 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 blah. But this right here is just next level headlines, clickbait, call it whatever the hell you want to call it. Kayvon Wallace says, nothing is given in Philly. I'm an attacker. I'm a hunter. I want to take food off another grown man's plate. I want to take food off another grown man's plate is like mic drop material. I don't know what it is in Philly. I don't know where they get these slogans. If they like recite them, or if like Philadelphia Eagles call them and say, "Hey, I have a new one. I have a new slogan. You guys need to run with this." Blah blah blah. But like the hungry dogs run faster. They just breed. They breed these quotes that I just love. I mean, these are stuff I would just have up on my walls and stuff like that, man. So shout out to Kayvon Wallace, former Clemson Tiger. But yeah, man, we got probably 2 or 3 more segments from the Legends Pod that we will be recording and releasing this week. And I will jump on here periodically throughout the week and just kind of blitz through Twitter. Went a little longer than I wanted to here. But, we'll jump on, give my opinions. And if you like it, great. If you don't, that's all right too. That's all for today, though. Stay tuned for the next one. Appreciate y'all's